Damn, it's been a long time since I last played Cities Skylines. Let me actually check. When was my last Cities Skylines video? Wow. I didn't actually realize it was that long ago. But anyway, we are finally back. And the more perceptive of you have probably noticed this is not Havenburg. And sadly, there is actually a good reason for that. It became a chore. The 5 FPS, just every time I thought about launching it and playing it, I was like, it will probably crash the first time and the second time and possibly the third time before I can even play it, and I just couldn't be bothered. So now I finally decided, let's just put that on an indefinite hold until, I don't know, I feel like playing it again, and let's start something new. But the problem that I have is that I always build things way out of proportion and have these great ideas and plans and whatnot that can never be realized. So I thought to myself, I need a small project, something very contained with strict borders that I cannot escape out of. Rules that I must follow. And then it hit me. What would be better than a small island with less than 10,000 people living on it? The island of Vis is a small island 53 kilometers off the coast of Croatia, making it the furthest permanently inhabited island. Its population is actually less than 5,000, even though the island itself is quite big. And just to give you an idea of how big, it pretty much barely fits in the 81 tile area inside City Skylines, which is, I think, roughly 18 square kilometers or something like that. So basically there you have the ballpark, but yeah, the population is fairly small. And that is one of the reasons why I chose this particular island of the many Croatian islands. And the other reason is because I actually have a house there. And what can I say? I build what I know. But yeah, anyway, I chose it because I wanted, as I said before, a contained project where I just want to have one little town or two towns to keep my FPS as high as possible, because as we all know, it is the population in this game that really slows down the game progression and really destroys your FPS. Well, at least that's what I found. You know, when you have a lot of mods, the FPS just drops with every single person living inside your city. I did do some testing like a long time ago, and if you like have no mods but a ton of different buildings and a large city, your FPS will be mostly okay. I mean, it depends. Now that's maybe because personally I have a little bit better GPU than I have a CPU, so maybe if someone has an i9 or whatever an AMD equivalent to that is, maybe you have it differently. But at least for me, I can have a lot of assets, but the population really brings me down. So I wanted a project that will allow me to have a very low population. And that's why this island is perfect. And in reality, naturally, the population is 5,000, but it can be different in-game, especially because of the different houses, values, and all. But in the series, I'm going to be using the French, south of France houses, I think, which are very, very small, which is how it is in real life. They pretty much more or less fit. I mean, most of the houses on this are 3 stories. Well, these are mostly 2 stories, but I found a way to kind of work around that. You'll see in a later episode. I don't think it will be in this one, but maybe in the next one. Anyway, a little bit more about the island. It actually is divided into 2 towns. I'm going to be focusing on the north town of Vis, which shares the name with the island. And there is a town in the south called Komija, and I will see if we get there, if I'm interested in continuing the series, and if you like it, if I like it, if the FPS survives the building down of Viz completely. And then we'll see how much of the island, how much of the surrounding island we build. Before I get into the build itself, I just want to say, for all those that for some reason maybe want to try to recreate the exact same thing I'm recreating, or just want to play on the map, you can do that. The map is on the workshop. The theme I'm using is linked in it, and the trees that I placed on it. Now, I didn't really detail it. I'm going to say that right off the bat, because, as I said, it's a large island with a low population, which means very few areas are actually going to be in the focus of attention, for me at least, and I'm building this map for me. But if you want to play it, just be aware that it's an imported terrain party image that has just been a bit smoothed out and some trees placed on it. And I covered it pretty densely with trees. There's about another 5,000 trees that can be placed. I think that should be more than enough. And since the entire surface of the island is covered in trees, you can pretty much just delete some of the trees. You will have to delete some of the trees to put your city in anyway. We finally got to the interesting part. I'm not really a big fan of placing buildings and choosing which ones to place, mostly because I always want a specific kind of building, and naturally there isn't that kind of building in the workshop, and I can't get it anywhere, so that's really what frustrates me the most. I most like to place props and detail stuff, or build something on a very large scale and use zoning. And that kind of reminds me that I didn't play this game in vanilla for quite some time, and this series was actually supposed to be, well, initially I wanted to start a new series and make it a vanilla playthrough, but I kind of chose not to because I don't know. Maybe it would be interested. I mean, I like to watch myself some Vanilla City Skylines as well. So if maybe some of you are interested in that, let me know in the comments, where else. If you would maybe be interested in watching a vanilla playthrough in more like the style of my Stellaris playthroughs. Not because they are way easier to make, but because it would be interesting for you. Now, I think it's about time that we get to what I'm actually doing in the time-lapse. I'm detailing the little square in front of the main market of the island. Well, it's not really the main, but it's one of the biggest in the town of Vis itself. There is like a huge market up in the hills a little bit further down, but this one is the largest one in the center. Tragic, right, that this little store is the largest town, right? But well, it is what it is. And I also didn't mention that I put the Google Maps in the right corner of the screen, but I don't really know what is there to mention, really. It's self-explanatory. Since I have Google Maps opened always when I'm playing this game, and now especially that I'm actually actively trying to recreate something as close to real life as possible, I just wanted to, see how it does look in real life. So I decided, why not just put a little Google Maps image in the right corner of it and show you how the things look in real life and what I'm looking at when I'm building these things. Anyway, now we are doing the little parking lot for mostly rental cars. Tourism is very big on the island, or as big as it can be on such a small island. But there are quite many rental cars there, and that is the specific parking for them. This is still, the public parking lot. But later you'll see I will add all these little scooters and Vespas there that are, of course, used for renting. And sadly, I couldn't find, more of those like little motorbikes, scooters, 50cc and stuff like that. The only thing I could find was this one Vespa prop. And I'm talking about props, not vehicles. There were some vehicles, but also not too many. And since the scooter and motorcycle bikes are, well, not really bikes, because the island is fairly big, so if you need to go to the other town, you do need a car or a scooter or something like that, a motorized vehicle preferably, to get to it. Bikes are usually just to move around the town itself, and they're pretty useful, since cars actually can't get past that point you saw me just a few seconds ago. I placed those bollards over there. They're the closest thing to what I could find to those elevating, where they are elevating bollards, but they're just way too big. Like, those things are as high as a car. So I know I'm using all these mods that allow me to zoom in further, and this entire build is basically very close up and very focused on detail. I mean, I know I don't even come close to some of the guys out there, but yeah, I'm going to try to detail it, like find a nice balance between what I can actually be bothered to do and what is actually detailed. But let me stop talking about that for a moment and address what I'm doing on the screen. The main problem I actually had was lighting, because the lighting on the island is very, faint and weak, while these lights that are available in the game are very, strong and have this circle. I know there are mods that allow you to fix it, but I'm really trying to work on reducing my mod load. So the trick that I have is I elevated the regular yellow park light high up until it gave me the sort of illumination that I wanted. And then I put that barricade prop, to act as a pillar, and I really love that trick. I think it's great, and I'm going to use it many times in this playthrough, because these yellow park lights are just so short and they illuminate such a small area. So when you elevate them further up and then, put that thing to act as a pillar of the light itself, it really works very well. But the time-lapse has once again gone away from me, and I started decorating this main bridge, ferry stop, whatever you will call it. And I must say, this is really the only thing I'm kind of disappointed with. It's way too long and way too wide for my liking, but there's really nothing better on the workshop. These Strict Toasters docks were just brilliant, because if it weren't for them, there would be absolutely nothing close to the thing that I actually wanted to build, or how it is in real life. Because, as you know, the ferries have car entrances at their bow or stern or both, so they have to dock on a bridge like this. But anyway, the time-lapse is nearly over, and the only thing left to build is just a small, I wouldn't even call it a marina, just a small wooden walkway to tie some like private fishing boats and things like that. But before the footage ends out on me, I'm just going to ask you one thing: to like the video if you want this series to actually continue, and if you thought the idea was interesting. And if you really liked the video, consider watching it again, because watch time is pretty much the only thing YouTube cares about.